Hit it.
Good morning, and thank you for joining. Kind of doing a fun little coffee talk this morning. Got Patrick, an industry expert on us, joining us from the East Coast. He's kind of what I'd call an e-commerce industry expert in the outdoor shooting industry, which is something very passionate. If anybody knows me, they've been listening to me. I'm an active shooter, active hunter, outdoorsman. Also joining me today is Maurice, my business partner. He'll be joining, and we're going to just kind of keep this, informal, good Q&A back and forth, and see what we could talk about how things are affecting us today and what we're looking at maybe in 6 months or 12 months, and just talk about more of an industry. I want to say not specific to Amazon, but let's just, we can kind of throw the bear in the room. A lot of this does talk about Amazon, but the channel and your e-commerce as a whole. So Patrick, thank you for joining with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm excited. There's a lot going on and no shortage of topics to discuss.
Great. Well, let's just start off with a question. How are you and your family doing through all this?
We are very fortunate. Everyone is healthy. For the most part, everyone we know has been able to keep their work. Obviously, some people are being affected, but we're fortunate enough to say we haven't been yet to this point. So we're just going about things the best we can and following the guidelines.
That's great. Maurice and I had the privilege to actually spend a lot of time with you in January. So it was nice. Before all this happened, we spent a lot of time with you and the team, at a big trade show, great dinner. Do want to thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
So that's great. And no, I think that's good. So Maurice, how are you doing this morning?
Pretty daggum good, man. Had a good morning run, whole bit. Ready to rock and roll for the day.
So you run while Patrick and we do the coffee. That's our motivation, right? Good. So, well, that's good. Well, glad everybody's safe and healthy as we go through this too. So, Patrick, let me just kind of, what do you see with what we happened with this pandemic and where we are today? When you talk about essential versus non-essential, I find it, obviously, being an avid outdoor and shooter, I have, a hobby. I have my FFL. I'm deemed, and everything that I touch is deemed essential under that. And some of the industry that you work in is deemed essential as well, but it's also not essential in certain states and what product can and cannot get into the Amazon warehouse. So like a supply chain. And again, I may be incorrect on some of these statements, but I wanted to open up to you. What do you see right now as the hurdle as we go into summer of some of this outdoor and then bleed into fall, which is more specific to your industry on more of that shooting and hunting? What do you see things today?
Yeah, I think today things are starting to normalize, especially regarding Amazon operations. They're starting to take more and more inventory from those FBA sellers. It was a very weird dynamic where Amazon is playing this almost quasi-government role, and they were so essential to, the American people getting supplies and getting people out of the brick and mortar stores that they couldn't take on a lot of, luxury items like, say, a pair of binoculars or a hunting scope. And as you said, some are deemed essential, some aren't. So it's kind of item to item basis. There's so many millions on Amazon, it's hard to see what is and what isn't. But for us specifically in the hunting and shooting industry, there's, really unprecedented demand at this point. And a lot of, come mid-April, a lot of people were out of stock and just weren't able to get product back in, even if they had it on hand. There were shipping capabilities that people didn't necessarily prepare for, having the ability to ship out to customers outside of FBA. And I think generally that's something that will probably change for a lot of those FBA sellers.
So do you think that it's a good point, and I'm going to assume most people that's listening today understands that FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. So they're harboring and keeping all the product, and that's how you obtain the buy box. Maurice and I've talked with a lot of my manufacturers, and they're going to really try to balance pretty heavily the fulfillment by merchant and the fulfillment by Amazon, and kind of go that route just to make sure that the transaction can still happen, and even though it may not be a buy box attainment, which seems to be second right now to just getting the product, the customer will still be able to obtain that product. So real quick too, when you talk about the demand, you're over in the East Coast today. We're up here in Idaho. I have a lot of friends and family that are in California. And it was really interesting. About 3 weeks ago or a month ago, someone that you met when we were down there in Las Vegas at a big trade show. So he was trying to obtain a few of the products that was on Amazon, and it actually popped up. I got a screenshot. I don't know if I shared this with you, Maurice, but it actually said this product has been deemed a sniper scope, and this product cannot be shipped to California. And it really was a hunting scope, and California is a very big hunting state. I found that to be, do you have any of those hurdles that you're talking through, or working with Amazon, or working with California, or how does that work?
With the clients I've seen in our particular products, we haven't experienced that. I think so much of it is kind of up to Amazon's discretion, for so many legal reasons that, I don't know enough about to speak on, so I will just avoid.
Yeah.
But I would say anytime that you're dealing with e-commerce specifically, you're kind of playing by your platform's rules.
Yeah.
So it's very tough you want to be on the biggest shopping platform in the world, but understand when you do that, you also have to play by the rules, whether you like it or not. And sometimes you fall victims to people in classifications that may not be correct, but it is what their system deems correct. So it's an uphill battle to fight.
No, that's pretty good. And Maurice, I know that you and I have been talking about that human element, where it's almost Amazon has created the habit of everybody going to Amazon now to whether you're using your omni-channel aspect of it, right, to do product reviews, product pricing, product information, which then leads to that conversion. So Maurice, I know you got some talking points on what that channel looks like when it's clean, when it's dirty, and some of that. So, and I know you got also a good friend of ours that actually is pretty avid hunter shooter too, that's doing some of the same stuff. So I want to give you a little time to chat about this as well.
Well, it has been interesting, because when you take a look at everything that I typically investigate on, these from the hunting and outdoors perspective, it is interesting to see everything that is deemed essential. I mean, to your point, when I first saw that all of the hunting gear and such were deemed essential, it's been interesting then. But the other thing that I've noticed is that a lot of them have relatively clean channels. I haven't had as many, like when you're looking at other items that are deemed non-essential, or even other outdoor products that might not be deemed essential, they have a lot more problems than the things that have been deemed essential, like the shooting gear that we're talking about. Sorry, I just knocked this table over. But it has been an interesting twist to see that in large measure, a lot of those things are in compliance. But again, I don't know what you folks are what you're seeing, Patrick, and such, but that's been my experience as of late. They are relatively clean in channels, and I don't know if it's because of the demand is driving that compliance or what have you. But that's essentially what I've been seeing thus far.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think very much that whether it's demand being so great that there's less incentive to get into price wars between dealers, it's probably a big aspect to it. I think reduction on shipments into FBA facilities has been a huge input into that. If someone can't ship their products in and they don't have the shipping infrastructure in-house, there's just no option really. I would say those are two great factors into that.
Yeah.
And we've even changed on a lot of our communication, because that's a good point, Maurice. We have clients across almost every spectrum, from food, consumables, to health and beauty, to clothing, to outdoor wear. So we've got the whole gamut. And most of those clients, you're kind of right, Maurice, that the outdoor industry seems to be some of the ones that are a little bit cleaner. Yeah. And maybe that goes to your point, Patrick, is as that supply and demand, the demand's increased, but the ability to supply have been diminished. So maybe their ability to obtain some of these products, from a downstream commerce or traditional retail arbitrage is inhibiting their ability to then go and have that on kind of a third party platform. But from an enforcement standpoint, we've, here at Howell and Associates, and we send thousands of enforcement documents across all platforms. We've changed that and toned that down pretty aggressively, not to be more, kind of a butthole about it, but more of just really nice to say, hey, we understand during this times, you're home, you're trying to provide, but please understand that you're still infringing on intellectual property and you're creating a disruption in the channel. And that came from a quite nasty call the very first week all this stuff happened, when someone was shut down, and I think I've heard it. If I had a dictionary of profanity, she just started at A and went through Z, all pointed at me. And that's okay. I mean, I'm a punching bag, and that's why clients use us like that. But we change a little bit. We want to be sensitive to what's going on out there too.
And I got to speak on that too, because the human element, it's so interesting, because when it's the nature of an investigation and then going into enforcement, it's kind of a gut punch for a lot of folks. And the conversations that I've had with a lot of the so-called offenders, sometimes they don't even know that they're offending. And then you start to realize, dadgummit, I want to be able to help you folks as well. And quite frankly, sometimes you feel kind of bad in those areas. But when you have that conversation, and when you can inquire about what's going on, it's amazing the kind of goodwill that brings to the table. And as of late, I've had the tough discussions. I mean, you get the New York discussions. It's always an interesting thing. I lived there for 10 years, and you go all East Coast. But the fact is, there's a lot of great information that are bringing in that's relevant too. And so the discussions as of late have been really of how this COVID-19 has impacted them, but it also opens up that discussion of hey, what can we do to help? So it's not always an enforcement anymore. And I've enjoyed that aspect of the human element in talking with a lot of these third-party sellers, some of which have been a hindrance to a lot of our clients. But once we have that conversation, and once it really is about inquiry, then it's much more less heightened in the emotional level, and we've gotten a lot of productivity from those conversations. Really, it really is a unique experience that I've not experienced in the past.
Exactly. So Patrick, really quick, because we want to keep this one not to 45 minutes like we were last week. But let's, what I want to do is, again, with you being, kind of high level consultant within this industry for especially around that hunting and outdoor, what you see today, in a perfect world, you had that magic ball that we all wish we could look into. Where do you think you see things in 6 months and then ongoing? Maurice, you touched on, the human element. The one thing that I'll say that I won't say I enjoyed with all this stuff, because it's nothing that we could be happy with, but I do like seeing the human nature of everybody, right? People, you have news commentary with dogs barking in the background. You have, hearings on Capitol Hill where their baby cries, and it's not a bad thing. People need to understand, you may put a suit on and walk somewhere, or you and I, we put a suit on, I go sit on stage and I speak, but we're all human and we all have lives. And this is actually bringing that to make everybody understand that that's great. So just the fact that we're all having a call here, and, I've got my leftist tears mug up on the wall there, and a Christian quote on the wall there. And I'm looking at great posters, and Patrick and Maurice, you're just coming back from a run, but I think it's great that we all have these conversations and just be just human about it, right? Take the formalities out of everything and let's just get the job done. And I think that's what you were talking about, Maurice. But again, going back, I've had a lot of coffee today, but going back, Patrick, where do you see things today? And if you could envision and have that magic ball, what does it look like in the next 6 months or 12 months on how things are changing?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is you'll probably see manufacturers start to probably increase their safety stock as much as possible. I think those programs are there for most people, but then you have just an unprecedented event that created such a demand spike you could have never seen, especially this time of year. It's turkey season, and that's about it. And everything is selling. So I think you'll really see people prep for later down in the year, because does this bubble up again? Will certain stores in certain states be shut down? Trying to get people product in advance. I think you'll see dealers stocking up, whether that's to have in-store or in their shipping facilities. I think from a dealer standpoint, like I kind of said earlier, you're going to see a lot of people try and be more capable themselves. I've always been a big proponent of, I don't think FBA is inherently a bad thing. It gives a lot of advantages, but it also limits you. Again, you're playing by someone else's rules, and you only have so much control. So the more you can put back in your own hands, the better. You can survive, say, 2 months without shipping any product, because Amazon restricted all scope sales or binoculars. And that's one of the things that I think will probably have the biggest impact downrange on dealers as they prepare for, say, hunting and holiday season this year.
So would you say, because that's a great point, and I didn't really think of it that way, but would you say that the price of goods may increase because manufacturers now are going to be manufacturing more product to keep more product in inventory and sit on that product because of what may happen, right? To be able to have that inventory, because before, they would almost produce or manufacture based on supply and demand and the previous year and trends. Where now, to your point, you might not be able to go off that historical data. You might need to be more, well, we got to look at historical data, but we also got to kind of look at that magic ball and say, well, maybe we should sit on $1 million in inventory so we have this to be able to get it out to consumers if we have to shut down manufacturing for a certain period of time.
Could you repeat the exact question?
Well, it was more about, do you think that prices may go up because not only do we have to increase more manufacturing and sit on the inventory, but as your point, ship it into FBA. There's an inherent cost to have Amazon hold on to this product, right? So
yeah.
we got to. Do you see a price maybe start increasing on a lot of manufactured products?
I'm not sure if I do. It's so hard to say. I would say it would probably come down to the individual manufacturer and their ability to sit on product. I think some are better suited to kind of remain stable. I think anytime you raise prices, there's always the question of, consumer trust and does the end consumer necessarily understand what's happening? If they've seen a product at $100 for the past 3 years and now all of a sudden it's $120, what happens? Is it the old buyer that kept repurchasing, or is it a new buyer who may not be familiar with that price?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't necessarily see it with, well-established brands where their loyal customers know their price points. I feel like that would be tough to do.
Sure. Yeah. That's good. And Maurice, you and I were on a call with a manufacturer yesterday where this is the exact opposite of what my statement was, where they're looking at laxing their whole MAP policy and their pricing by 20% during all of this, whether it's a goodwill, whether it's to move more product or to anticipate what might be out there, that's undecided, but they're looking at going different, saying we may have to decrease the cost of our products. And that I still don't understand that strategy. It may be a strategy on things I don't know about, but I know, Maurice, that was a pretty good conversation with somebody outside of this industry.
It was very interesting. The other thing, though, too, is just as COVID-19 has made it so, the most common thing is I hear, when things get back to normal. And hey, I survived 9/11, right? And I was right there. And the thing is, there was a new normal. And I think that is what we're going to go into. Matter of fact, one of our clients sent us something by Simon Sinek that was talking about that very thing yesterday, about it's not going to go back to normal. There will inevitably be a new type of normal. So I think that conversation that we had yesterday with that client it is completely different what Patrick is saying about the pricing increase or decreases or so on and so forth. And once that's vetted out, it'll be interesting to see what that new normal looks like.
Yeah. Somebody should register that website. www.
The new normal?
I don't know. the ability of human nature to adapt is amazing. So, it is kind of crazy. So, well, Patrick, again, we want to keep this short, more conversational. Nothing was scripted today. Nothing was, we didn't have a list of questions. There's nothing on my desk here. More just, I haven't talked to Patrick for a while. Love his insights. Love spending time with him. We just kind of want to talk a little bit about this specific industry and where we see going, and I'm sure we'll have him back on. But is there anything you'd like to say or any closing statements, Patrick?
I think I would just say, one, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And giving me this chance to talk with you guys. It's been too long. Hopefully it's not as long before our next dinner. It might be a while, unfortunately. And I think it's the world in e-commerce and just brick and mortar commerce is changing so fast. It's so hard to predict what's happening because we don't know.
Yes.
In 3 months, it could still be the same situation we're in now, or maybe, it does go back to our older normal. And it's just, I think you're going to see dealers and manufacturers try and be ready to move quicker and pivot if need be.
Right.
Yeah. You know what we'll do, Maurice? Let's go ahead and let's put 90 days on the calendar. If you're open to it, I think we should recap 90 days and just see, because everything, and I use this word a lot, it's a guesstimation, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to guess on what's going to happen. And you're using the data you have, but I mean, it's changing so fast and so dynamic. We don't know. And, I don't mind taking a hit that I was wrong, because you only can go off of what you have in front of you. So.
Right. Perfect.
Well, good. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate the time today. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Say hi to the family, and we're looking forward to catching up here really soon. Thanks a lot, Maurice.
Hey, you got it. Take care, Patrick. Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.